right, it is that time once again. What's up, everybody? Ben Rasa here for Odd Chapter, bringing you my favorite bet from across the sports world today. Saturday, September 3rd, aka Week 1 in college football. We got about 100 games, it feels like, to break down. I've dug into the line, scanned the board, selected the play that I am on tonight. If you are checking out this channel for the first time, hopping in, welcome to Odd Chopper. We break down these things, we find the betting value, and we try to cash the tickets. If you like what you see, you want to support us, hit that like button, make sure you subscribe. Join this community, join this team. We want all the momentum. We want to be in this together. Yesterday, where were we? I know a lot of you were on it with me. TCU Horned Frogs down 3-0. I was a little nervous. We honestly shouldn't have been nervous. They were clearly the better team. They woke up. Second half was a laugher. They won easy. They cashed easy. We get some momentum going into Saturday. That is what we wanted. And now we've got a lot of opportunities to keep it going. BetMGM powering the show. And speaking of opportunities, promo code BensBet or use the link in the description of this video. If you're a first-time depositor over there, you can get that risk-free bet of up to $1,000. I know a lot of people are looking to add money to their bankroll. This is a great way to do it. Take advantage of what the books are offering. BetMGM, you get that risk-free bet upon your first deposit. Take advantage of that. Now, looked at the board. There were a lot of games today. There were a lot of spots to go, and certainly I was back and forth with some of them, but I settled on one of the late games. You got plenty of time for this one, and it's going to be a competitive game. I was going to lay major points in some other games. I settled on the Boise State-Oregon State game. It's going to be competitive inside a field goal. I am on Oregon State minus 2.5, and let's talk about why, because the reasoning is important here. We'll do what we do for baseball, basketball, football. Let's break it down. Let's dig into the numbers, and let's talk about these teams. Boise State Broncos, the team that plays on the blue turf. Always a tough out for anyone. They were 7-5 last year. Not the best year for them. They do have 17 starters back, including their quarterback, Hank Bachmeier. He's a good player. 20 touchdowns, 8 picks last year. He does lose his alpha on the outside. Shakir is gone. He got drafted. But the offense is going to be good. The offensive line is solid. They averaged 29 points per game last year. I don't really have a lot of things to knock them on. They're a good unit. They're a good team. I don't think they're a juggernaut. We'll have to see what they replace on the outside, but Halani in the backfield, Bachmeier under center, decent offensive line, quality offensive line. I shouldn't even say that. They will be good, and they will be able to put up points on people. Defensively, 9 starters back. Again, another talented group. They have first-teamers.
What was Drake May's prop?
Let's go to the videotape, 247.5.
247. Let's see here. That is quite rich for him. It's still 247?
It certainly is.
Jeez. Without Josh Downs?
That's what I'm talking about.
Well.
East Carolina. Yes, sir. All right, here we go again. Third day in a row, and I get to say welcome to Stokastic College Football Live Before Lock, presented by PrizePicks. I am Ben Rasa. I am joined, as I always am, by Matt Gajewski. 14 games in an hour. Can it be done? We're about to find out together. I am absolutely pumped for the first big Saturday of the college football season. We had some good work yesterday. TCU got it done late for us. How are you feeling? Third day in a row. You have been up since when? Let's just ask the question.
I just got up early,
Yeah, early.
A lot of games today, a lot of late breaking news, but stayed up late too watching all those games. We got some nice covers, but it's a really exciting day today. We have a ton of great matchups. I'm excited to get into it. Thank you guys all for being here. I'm pumped.
I cannot wait. We appreciate all the support. If you want to hit that like button early in the show, it really helps us out. We're going to get all the info we can in this hour. And let's start with our friends at PrizePicks. They have been powering the show. They've been doing a great job, and you see it right on your screen. We're going to match your first deposit up to $100 with that promo code Awesemo. PrizePicks.com. Download it in the App Store. And what you're doing over there, you're going to be targeting props over under, say on passing yards or rushing touchdowns or receptions, all different categories. And there are so many places to attack. Before the show, I was asking you about a couple that in my mind stood out. One being Drake May. It's the UNC quarterback who's going to be missing his alpha on the outside at 247.5 for his passing yards. I think that might be a little rich.
Yeah, that's extremely rich. We had him below that before Josh Downs was ruled out. Now he's missing his number one receiver. That's a really strong prop right now. I'm surprised it hasn't been pulled from the board. If you can still get it, I would try to get it as soon as possible because I don't think it's going to be up there throughout the entirety of this show.
And then on the flip side, you've got a Maryland quarterback in Tagovailoa. It's a big number at 311.5, but they're going to be throwing all over the place in a game where they're massive favorites. I think that even if he's not throwing the ball in the fourth quarter, he might be able to get there in 3 quarters.
Yeah, I mean, Buffalo's spread is within reason. Usually we stop projecting for full allotment of snaps at 4 scores. They're within that. So I think they played the entire game. The total's well above 60. We know Maryland's implied for like 45 points here. They throw the ball incessantly. They're top 30 in play rate and pass rate. And they have the 2 studs back. Dante Demas is back. Raheem Jarrett wasn't hurt last year, but he's back too. So he has all his weapons. They're going to run the same offense, and Buffalo is not offering a ton of resistance.
No doubt about it. It's going to be a lot to get to here. So let's just get it started. And we're going to start with Bearcats, with the weird spelling of Sam Houston State FCS school. They're in a bad spot. They're going to take on Texas A&M. Big time underdogs, 31.5 point underdogs, a total of 54 in this game. This is a 14 game slate. So does a team like Sam Houston State even factor in? Is there anybody that we need to talk about?
No, I'll say this. They're good for an FCS team. Unfortunately, they're playing like a top 5 team in the country in A&M. So I wouldn't waste any roster spots. The only thing I think you can say about this Sam Houston State team is they throw a decent amount. So if you want to run back just for full game stacks, Iffy Aday and Cody Kress do have a lot of target value. Those are guys that each had over 700 receiving yards. But with some of the value that's opened up, I don't think you need it.
And then shout out to looking at the roster. Desmond Jackson's on this team. Friend of the show from Oklahoma State. I assume he doesn't factor in today, even though he's dropping off in level of competition.
Right. I won't be playing him.
Okay. On the other side, Texas A&M, certainly they're going to have bigger games than this, but I am interested to see, what Haynes King can do, and certainly some of their weapons on the outside. Massive favorites at home. How long do these guys play? And if we're going to target them, where do we go?
I think you can target them. Just their team total is so high. You want to get pieces of some of these teams, and they won't be as owned as some of the other spots. Haynes King is still largely an unknown to this point, but he's mobile, which gives him a little added bonus here. I think you can play Haynes King. They're going to probably try to look at him a decent amount today. It was a heated battle in camp coming into this week. So King's out there. They're also evaluating some receivers. Anai Smith is back. We know exactly what he is at this point. He's a little gadget guy, former running back, gets some carries and catches a lot of balls. But they listed Evan Stewart, their freshman receiver, as a clear starter. No ifs, ands, or ors in the depth chart. Evan Stewart's going to be out there. He doesn't project as well as some guys behind him, but I think there's a lot of upside, not just from the team total here, but he could just be a straight up baller. Texas A&M recruits only good players. If they just end up with a straight alpha, this is the cheapest he's ever going to be. And there's a couple of receivers like this today that I'll be taking a few shots on. Evan Stewart is one of them. Again, his projection doesn't line up with some of the guys a little bit cheaper than him, but that's because we have no idea what he is. He could just be a straight up stud and we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty and the pain of week 1 with some of these teams. You mentioned it could be a buy low opportunity, or we could look back and say he doesn't really factor in immediately. Large spread. So I assume this is a team potentially worth targeting, but at the same time, in a 14 game, they don't stand out amongst everybody else.
That's 100% correct. The backfield is interesting too. You have such a high team total, like Devin Achane is some guy you should look at. He's small, but he's extremely efficient. 7 yards per carry last year. Extremely good pass catcher out of the backfield. Caught 24 balls, and that was with Isaiah Spiller in the backfield. So I think he's right up there with some of the other starters and timeshares not expected to play the full time of games, but are just going to live through pure efficiency. He should be in your GPP pool.
Rutgers and BC, pretty competitive game. Boston College, 7.5 point favorite, 47.5. A lot of methodical totals on this slate. Some high, but this really isn't one of them. Rutgers got a handful of guys potentially playing quarterback today. So let's start there. Is there anything we can decipher from the passing attack?
No, I don't think we're playing anyone on Rutgers today.
Oh, tough scene. No one on the outside either with, like Taj Harris coming over.
He was listed as a co-starter with Sean Ryan, which is concerning. Last year, there was a void of talent at receiver. So you had Aaron Cruikshank, Shameem Jones kind of forced into the starting roles. And I don't think they played that well. Cruikshank got hurt. But now they listed Jones, Cruikshank, Taj Harris, and West Virginia transfer Sean Ryan as co-starters. The only clear starter they listed was Joshua Youngblood, which is really interesting because he wasn't a factor last year. Must have had a really good camp or something. But even there, I think this is a 5-way rotation at receiver. And that's when you haven't even considered tight end at that point. So I'm out on quarterback. It's a rotation there. It's a rotation at receiver. And it's a rotation at running back. Aaron Young's out, but they're going to still play Al-Shadi Salam and Kyle Monongai, which is going to be rough for a team that only has a 20 implied total. You can basically skip over this team unless you're playing the biggest of tournaments.
On the other side, Jurkovich comes back, was banged up for Boston College, but he will lead them. They've got Garwell in the backfield. They've got Zay Flowers, 6,300 on the outside. Are these names that are going to factor into your pool, or are there cheapies we need to talk about? How do you break down Boston College?
It's kind of a sneaky team. Jurkovich is really cheap at 6,300 for a guy that's really mobile. Last year, he had 322 rushing yards in 6 games. That's pretty good dual threat ability there. And he's stackable. We know exactly who he's throwing to. Zay Flowers is the top returning receiver, caught 44 balls, nearly 750 yards, and that was with a backup through most of the year. And if you watched Boston College last year, you knew very well that backup was nothing like Jurkovich. So I think he's a 1,000-yard receiver with a full season from the competent quarterback. That's a solid stack here. I'm probably not going any further than that because of the value that's opened up, but Jalen Gill and Jaden Williams are the 2 cheaper plays in this receiving core, The backfield is going to be Pat Garwell and Alex Sinkfield. The interesting thing here is they lost Travis Levy, who was their 3rd down back. I don't know which of these guys is going to play that 3rd down back, but if it's Garwell, he already handles all the early down work. And if he gets the pass catching role, he could have a potential bell cow opportunity. He's only 6,900, which is kind of right in line with some of the more expensive backs. I'm interested in Garwell and GPPs.
A little AJ Dillon type season, maybe. We'll see. I am interested to see how Boston College plays. If that was under 7, I'd probably take a shot. I am passing on that game. But the next game is one of the more interesting to me. NC State, who a lot of people are very high on this year, including me, in a tricky little game on the road, 11.5-point favorites still. Healthy implied total. Devin Leary. They've got a ton of production back all over the field. Will you be targeting the Wolfpack today on the DFS side?
I'm playing really limited lineups today just because it's hard on Saturdays with all the news and stuff, as you guys probably are experiencing, some of you for the first time. So I won't be playing anyone on NC State. If you're playing a lot of tournaments, I think you can. They have a middling team total. The issue with Leary is he doesn't run. And on a 14-game slate, negative rushing yards are a hindrance. He had negative 73 rushing yards last year. He needs to get over 300 if he's going to end up in a tournament winning lineup, which he can do. He's live to do it. But again, the team total is not great here, suggesting that it's not the best bet. It's also kind of difficult to see who to stack him with. They rotate receivers more than other teams. Devin Carter's their leading returner. Thayer Thomas right there with him. Carter's more efficient, but Thomas catches more balls. And then interestingly, they listed Kian Lassane as the final starter over Porter Rooks. That's not how the pecking order went last year. So that's an interesting piece. Maybe you could play Lassane as a depth piece, a really cheap option, but I'm not interested with some of the other value that's opened up. Backfield, Jordan Houston, somewhat interesting. He's going to be replacing Ricky Person and Zonovan Knight. They use it timeshare historically, but they also had 2 pretty good backs. We're not sure if Houston's going to be the bell cow or in a timeshare with like Demi, Sumo, Kongbai, or DeMarcus Jones. He might be, we just don't know. So you could take some flyers. I'm not going to be doing it myself.
On the other side, East Carolina is looking to play, upset special. Holton Ahlers, we've seen this guy at times really be mobile. We've seen this guy at times not be mobile. He's 6,100. Is that enough to throw him in tournaments? Is that enough to put him, I don't think cash viable, but maybe. What do you see with Ahlers today?
I don't think he's the best play. There's a lot of better projected plays in this price range. He doesn't run anymore. That was basically, he's kind of descended in terms of his rushing ability, going all the way back to his freshman year, which was his best season there. And they're replacing a lot of their pass catchers. CJ Johnson's back, but they really had to dip into the portal to replace their other options. That's not great here with an implied team total of just 21 points. Winstead comes over from Toledo. Jalen Johnson comes over from Georgia. With CJ Johnson being the cheapest, he would be the guy to take a flyer on. And then their backfield's a 50-50 committee on a team with an implied team total of just under 21 points. It's a pass for me.
Yeah, last question. I know certainly if you're looking for betting content, Odd Shopper YouTube, you guys know, you've seen us both over there breaking down all these games from a betting standpoint. Do you think East Carolina is live to win this game?
No, I bet NC State.
Okay, well, that answers that. I don't really see it.
But I bet it at -10 in the summer, so I'm sitting with a good number.
Fair enough there. Anything else from this game on the DFS side, or are we good?
I think we can move on.
The next game is one of the more interesting Heisman dark horse Holton arrows. That is extremely bold. UNC at App State, 1.5-point favorite for the Mountaineers, 57-point total. This is so far the game that the news is really pouring in, and it starts with one of the premier players on the entire slate. Josh Downs is not playing today. What does that do for this offense, and how big of a loss is that?
It's enormous. He's their best player on offense, and it's not really close. Drake May is a young quarterback now going into his second start. What we can say about him is he's extremely mobile, and I still think he's live for tournaments because of that. We haven't seen App State play yet, but they lost 6 starters on their defense, and it was a good defense last year. So that's a lot of production to replace. I think UNC can still score, but they're going to have to rely on a lot of unproven pass catchers. Gavin Blackwell should probably be the wide receiver 2 at this point. He was second in routes last week in week 0. JJ Jones was third. And then I think you're probably looking at like Pacer as the wide receiver 3 at this point, but they might honestly run 2 tight ends. Bryson Nesbitt had a decent showing at the tight end position, but Kamari Morales also plays there. These guys are all extremely cheap. JJ Jones, for some reason, isn't, though. Blackwell at 4K played ahead of JJ Jones. I think he becomes somewhat cash viable now. They run the air raid in North Carolina. With Phil Longo, it's fast, it's up-tempo, it's a ton of plays. Now, that may change with the injury, but I'm not sure that it will. And in the running back field, they split carries. It was DJ Jones that actually took the first snap, but he played terribly against A&M. So I think now they're looking at their 4-star freshman, Omarion Hampton, who was easily their best rusher, and they kind of let him take the reins once he started to produce 14 rush attempts over 100 yards. He's the stone minimum, so he's another cheap option here, which is really where I'm targeting North Carolina, is these cheap guys. I was more interested in Hampton before the Josh Downs news. Now I have a lot of interest in Blackwell.
Yeah, I mean, someone's obviously going to have to step up. And we did see North Carolina play, but it was Florida A&M. It was really not. I watched that game. I'm embarrassed to say, but I did watch it. And there wasn't a lot to discern. Drake May looked really good, but this is a totally different level of competition. The price points you mentioned, Blackwell, Hampton at the Stone Min, these are guys to take a look at. On the other side, your boy Chase Bryce, 6,900. He's joined. He's got some guys on the outside, certainly Peoples, Noel in the backfield. What do you think of App State? Can they have success against the Tar Heels front?
This is an interesting spot to target now because you saw the line flip with the Josh Downs news. It's crazy how much he's worth. He's worth apparently like 3 points to the spread, and I agree with that. But now you have App State as a favorite, and you look at the composition of their team. They lost their top 4 wide receivers, but they do have returners on the offensive line, and they return their 2 starting running backs. So this is a team that's already predominantly a run-based team when they can be. Nate Noel is 5,300. Cameron Peoples is 49. It's basically a 50-50 timeshare, but they're not used in the same way. Noel is a 5'10", 190-pound back. Peoples is 6'2", 220. If you go back last year, it's essentially a 50-50 split till they get in the red zone, where they have a strong preference towards Peoples, and it makes sense given his size. I think he's more likely to score touchdowns, which are really the moneymakers for DFS. At the cheaper price point of 4,900, he's going to be a really strong play here.
A lot to get to today, but I also would have to tell you guys, if you're looking for all this info on a 14-game slate, today is the last day to take advantage of our promo code where you can get Stokastic Plus college football for a single $1 for the week. Promo code Heisman at checkout. No reason not to come in and check that all the projections, the ownership, the tools, everything that we have for college football that Matt Powers, his premium deep dive article, all of this is where you want to be. You see it on the screen there for a single $1, promo code Heisman. I know a ton of you have already done this, seen you guys do it. But for people that are just checking out the show for the first time or haven't done it, today is your last chance. Really encourage people to do that. And I'll give you one more quick. For those of you who are already on PrizePicks, I did just see in their Discord, They are doing a special for today. Your first college football bet up to $15 is risk-free. So if you lose, you get it back in site credit. Another way to take advantage if you're just checking out the sport for the first time. A lot of good things around college football today. Don't know if it'll be good for Buffalo. They go into Maryland, 24-point dogs. I'm sorry to say that it's Khalil Mack is not walking through that door, 65-point total. Is there anything on Buffalo that you want to talk about or worth talking about?
Yeah, this game is somewhat appealing in terms of shootout potential. We'll get to Maryland in a second, but they're a team we definitely want to target. And I think Buffalo's live for run backs. They're a team that has some pretty interesting transfers coming in the receiver game. I don't know how quarterback play is going to be for them. They're moving to Cole Snyder, a Rutgers transfer, and seeing as he couldn't beat out some of the guys in that Rutgers quarterback room, I don't know if we should be real confident in him. With that said, they're really cheap options, and Maryland has struggled on defense before. They've allowed a lot of teams to hang with them when they shouldn't have, some of that due to injury, some of that due to just their pace of play. All that to say is you're probably not targeting Snyder, but some of these receivers are interesting and cheap. Shan Williams is 5,200. This guy had over 800 receiving yards, caught 64 balls last year. That's pretty interesting against Maryland. They had Justin Marshall from Louisville, 4.4K. Booby Curry from Arizona, 3.9K. These guys are going to get a lot of looks because Maryland's going to score and Buffalo is going to have to try to keep up. I think they're interesting overall. And if you're stacking the Maryland side, I think you should at least consider a run back.
Yeah, certainly this is going to be more, I think what you're saying, run back potential than actually stacking up Snyder and these guys, right?
Yeah, that's my thought. We haven't seen a lot of Snyder for what it's worth, but with so many options on this slate, I'm not sure I'm going to take that gamble. Well, I'm not personally, but I don't know if you guys should.
On the other side, I think that clearly Tagovailoa is in a really good spot. He's going to be a popular stack, and I think that it's warranted. It seems like him, Demas, and Jarrett would make for a really good opportunity here. But outside that, they've got Copeland in from Florida. They've got some other guys. Maryland's offense is firmly in play on this 14-game slate, are they not?
Yeah, they might be the single best offense to target, and there's a lot of reasons why. They check essentially every box. One, their team total's enormous. Two, they're playing Buffalo, who doesn't have a strong defensive presence. So first of all, they should be able to score at will. Third, they're really up-tempo and pass-heavy. So you're getting a lot of play volume coming in a specific way with a quarterback who's a veteran who averaged over 300 passing yards per game. He's not the most mobile, but he's not taking a lot of sacks either. He finished with 81 rushing yards. That's not great, but it's not negative either. So he's not costing you points on the ground. With that said, his receivers are so cheap compared to their volume. I understand too, Dante Demas, he's coming off a season-ending injury, but this guy had over 500 receiving yards in just 5 games last year. Immense target volume. He's an amazing deep threat. And then they have Raheem Jarrett. He was their wide receiver 2 before Demas went down. And then he really stepped up in his absence, caught 62 passes, 829 yards. He's 5,900. These guys are both extremely cheap. And then their final starting position, they listed Jacob Copeland, Florida transfer, as a co-starter with Ty Felton. Felton's really cheap, and they're going to rotate receivers to some degree just by necessity. They play so fast, they have to at times. This is a great stacking opportunity. It's going to be owned, so navigate this however you see fit. But there's a lot of great price-adjusted plays for this Maryland team.
Does it render the backfield useless?
I was surprised to see this. They listed Roman Hemby as the clear starter. No R's. That was over Colby McDonald and Antwain Littleton. I thought we were going to get just a flat out different guy starting, but in camp, Roman Hemby won the job, it seems like. He might have a good workload. He might not. We've never seen this guy operate in this role. So Maryland's a massive favorite. Their starting running back is 4K flat. If he's used anywhere near a feature back workload, he has an amazing opportunity here, and he would be significantly too cheap. Just don't know if it's a timeshare or if it's him.
Yeah, you mentioned it, and we've talked about this in the past couple of days. In college football DFS, you can take kind of an offensive stack, even when he doesn't need to catch passes to be effective, even if you go to Tagovailoa and co, because they might hang 50 points by themselves and they can all coexist.
Yeah, and let's say he's in a timeshare. Their implied team total is 45 points. He can be in a timeshare and still score multiple touchdowns and get you there. He's 4K.
Yeah,
I'm going to play him now. I only have 3 lineups right now just because although late news was extremely hard to handle and get projections, but I'm going to make one with him right now.
Yeah, I get it, man. 7-8 touchdowns for this offense.
seems like a pretty even barometer. I think Maryland's obviously going to be fine today. So.
One last thing, like this passing attack is going to be super owned too. This could be a spot for decent leverage.
Absolutely. No doubt about that. You're getting a great piece of an offense, but if he just falls in the end zone 3 times because, Tagovailoa throws it and the guy lands on the 1 yard line, that could be the difference today in large field tournaments. Yeah. No doubt about it. The next game, oh boy, Michigan's a 30.5-point favorite, 61-point total in the game. Colorado State's going to have their hands full. What is going on? They kind of are in a rebuild. They've changed some staff and whatnot. I don't know much about this team, but how bad a shape are they in here?
This is a team we definitely want to look at for the future. They just kind of draw the worst spot possible. Polar opposites. Last year, they were among the run heaviest, slowest teams in the country. They basically go out, hire Nevada's coaching staff, they take all their players in the portal. Their team is the exact opposite now. Nevada was up-tempo. They were pass-heavy, and they're going to play that way this year. But they have a quarterback who's unproven in Clay Millen. He's actually a former 4-star recruit, so the recruiting pedigree is there. They take Torrey Horton and Melquan Stovall from Nevada, their two of their top 2 receivers, and these guys are going to immediately start for Colorado State. The issue is they're 30-point underdogs, and they're playing Michigan, who's, by all accounts, the top 5 team in the country this year. So this might be a situation where we want to target Colorado State in future weeks at cheaper prices. But if you're playing Michigan, guys, I don't hate the run back with a really cheap Stovall, just because they're going to be throwing the ball all throughout the game, and they're going to get off a decent amount of plays, even if they're getting killed. You might have the opportunity for just some really cheap PPR value.
So on the other side, Michigan has a massive team total. They're also possibly doing something that's a little unique in terms of their quarterback situation, where they have stated that Cade McNamara is going to get the reins in week 1. JJ McCarthy's going to get it in week 2, and then they're going to decide. Does that mean that you anticipate someone like JJ McCarthy not even hitting the field today?
I think that's possible. I think if McNamara plays relatively well, that's probably what they want to do. But this is a fluid situation. If he sucks, which, I don't think he will. He played reasonably well last year. But if he does suck, then I think you could see him pulled at some point. But to your point, they have 2 really cupcake matchups in week 1 and 2. They're just going to get a look at both of these guys. McNamara is not really that mobile. That's McCarthy's best quality. So he doesn't really stand out among the pecking order. And then if he's going to be in any sort of timeshare, that also hurts him. He's off my board.
I think, for what it's worth, not that anyone cares about this, I think McCarthy's going to end up winning the job. But
love McCarthy.
What?
Love McCarthy.
Yeah, I know your team, McCarthy. In the backfield, Quorum, Edwards, they're going to run it down their throat. I think it would be on a 14-game slate too much to pair them. That's a lot of salary. Don't do that. But I assume that you think both these guys are in play.
Yeah, I do think so. Overall, they're just going to run the ball so much. Yeah. We saw this last year, and we've seen this many times in the past. You have certain teams that are just really run heavy. They're going to get off a certain amount of plays where you could see them each finish with 18 to 20 touches. North Carolina did that with Javonte Williams and Michael Carter. Last year, Michigan did that with Corum and Haskins. Now Donovan Edwards is projected to step up into that role. Maybe not the 1-for-1 Hassan Haskins role. He's not that same size, but I think these guys are going to split the backfield mostly between these two, maybe a third plays here and there, but they're both too cheap, just flat out for their implied team total and the style of offense they play. They're both too cheap.
On the outside, certainly it's not the most prolific passing attack, but they've got guys. And then Ronnie Bell went down. I think it was in the first game last year.
Yeah, it was.
So what does that do? I mean, he's back in the fold. Are these guys playable?
They've sneaky, maybe one of the best receiving corps in the country. They're like all 4- and 5-star recruits. They're all veterans now. Every single one of them has solid playing time. Like Eric All's a really good receiving tight end. And then Cornelius Johnson stepped up as the number one without Ronnie Bell last year, and he played well in that. And then Ronnie Bell comes back himself from the torn ACL. He was their number one receiver before all these injuries. Then they have role players, Roman Wilson, Angel Anthony, AJ Henning. These guys all played a lot. With that said, they could cannibalize each other, especially in a game like this where they're massive favorites. You're always towing that line. Okay, I want to target these teams with massive implied team totals, but at the same time, when you have a really crowded group of players, it's going to be hard to roll the dice and hit the one that actually produces on the field. So I'm comfortable fading it. It's going to make you feel a little bad, though, if someone gets there. It's a tough situation.
It is, again, looking at the projections and some of the tools, I think it provides some upside in tournaments, but it is really hard. You're playing somewhat of roulette there. A friend of the show, Ryan Nelson, Iowa State avoids Northern Iowa this year. Good for Lindquist's mental health. Can confirm on every account. Unfortunately, they don't avoid Iowa, and that they can't get past them either. Very, very disturbing. And sadly, we will talk about them at some point this season. Oh boy, the team I always make fun of, Bowling Green, on the slate at UCLA, only 23.5, 56-point total. Got to give Bowling Green credit. They did cash a money line ticket as like 30-point underdogs last year for whoever in the world would have bet that. Certainly not me. Are they getting better? The MAC has not looked great so far. Is Bowling Green useful today?
Yeah, you and I talked about this on our preview show. Not Bowling Green. Most of the MAC is undergoing a ton of changes. Bowling Green is one team that's not. And they've actually taken a good amount of money here. This was like a minus 28 game earlier this summer. It's down to like 23.5. Bowling Green's taken some money. Quarterback's back. Their top 4 running backs are back. Their top 3 receivers are back, which includes a receiving tight end. A ton of players are back. This is another spot where you just might get some sneaky PPR volume late in games. Austin Osborne's a pretty good receiver. The only issue is now you just have cheaper guys like Gavin Blackwell who project much better than him at this point. So I think for tournaments, Austin Osborne, Tyrone Broden, Christian Sims, they're all sitting in that 4 to 5K range. These are GPP plays now based on the value that has opened up in other spots.
I assume the backfield, not great.
No.
Okay. DTR, $9,000. Certainly can get it going. With mobility. I don't know how much he's going to have to do today. Where do you rank him amongst the quarterbacks?
He's a little lower just based on price, but scary fade with the mobility he does have. This is towards like the elite tier of mobility. He rushed for over 600 yards last year. The only issue is he's not a prolific passer. He averages 220 passing yards per game. So he's not really live to get you the bonus there. And when they really beat up on their opponents, they do so via the run. So even in a matchup like this, I'm not confident in his ability to rack up passing yards. Then you have to consider he's breaking in 3 new receivers, essentially. Cam Brown and Kazmir Allen are the 2 leaders among the incumbents. They each had 17 catches. They're also going to rely on Jacob Bobo, a Duke transfer, to come in here and immediately play after they just lost a ton of production. I think if you're stacking Dorian Thompson-Robinson, it probably is with Bobo, but ultimately it's not a stack I love on today's slate, but we can look at the backfield, and there's a lot of reasons to like Zach Charbonnet. First and foremost, the spread, the implied team total, and then you look at his profile. This guy is awesome. He basically ran Britton Brown off the field last year. We actually had a productive preseason with Vegas. This guy is 220 pounds. He caught 24 passes, and then he rushed for 1,137 yards and 13 scores on just 200 attempts. Now Britton Brown is vacating another 100 carries and 18 receptions. They don't have a clear backup. I think it's Keegan Jones, and he'll play a little bit, but Zach Charbonnet is in line for a monstrous workload. And then if they kill Bowling Green and Charbonnet gets pulled early, I'm sure he had something to do with it on the way there.
Yeah, I mean, he's in a really good spot. The implied team total is over 40. UCLA is going to be good, and they're a team to watch this year in the Pac-12. I don't think they get tested today. I'll echo everything you said on Charbonnet. Really, really good situation. One of my favorite betting games, if you want to get over again, OddShopper YouTube, check out those previews, would be the Cincy and Arkansas game. And I'll give you guys a little taste. I like Arkansas on the spot. I think Cincinnati's going to have problems replicating what they had last year. And it starts with their signal caller. Ritter is gone. Where do they turn the keys? I'm not exactly sure. So for DFS purposes, how does Cincinnati run their offense after major losses from last year?
That's a great question because they haven't committed to a quarterback. The rumors are we're going to see Ben Bryant. I think that probably makes sense. He has a lot of experience as a backup in the system. It's kind of a shame that the highest recruit in their program history hasn't been able to take the starting job, Evan Prater. It appears the ship has kind of sailed on him. I wouldn't be surprised if you see him transfer after this year if he doesn't win this. No idea what Ben Bryant is. He played at Eastern Michigan in a really low-level competition, not mobile whatsoever. But Eastern Michigan, if you watched them play yesterday, you probably know they're really pass-heavy. And the offense is kind of tailor-made with really good receivers getting yard after catch opportunities. What does Bryant look like at a pro-style offense? I have major concerns. And then the fact that he's not mobile is the reason I'm not going to play him whatsoever today. They lost essentially all their playmakers on defense. They lost their number one receiver. They run a rotation at receiver anyway, so it's really hard to play anyone on Cincinnati. And they also listed 4 co-starters at running back. So we don't even have a guy like Jerome Ford who we can lock down as the lead back.
It is weird because I think that Arkansas is going to take a step back defensively. They only have 4 starters back, but you mentioned, I'm not sure that Cincinnati is the team to really do it. And even if they are, where is the production coming from? That is a tough question. On the Arkansas side, we know they have stability at quarterback. KJ Jefferson, 7,400. He was great last year. Now, I've said this on many shows already. I want to see what he can do without Treylon Burks, but they did bring in some transfers. They've got some stability in the backfield. How do you think Arkansas runs their offense?
I think we know they're going to be run heavy, and I don't think they're going to change that much. I think they're going to take some shots. Let's start with the run game first. KJ Jefferson is a reasonable play today. I think he's projected, or I should say his salary is basically in line with his projection. There's upside within it, and he's not too expensive. His mobility is really good, 664 yards, 6 scores on the ground. He only rushed 146 times too, so efficiency is his strength. And he's also involved in the goal line because he's this big bruising guy, and he gives you advantages via numbers against your defense. So I think with the offensive linemen they return, which is a really good group, they're going to lean on the run. Raheem Sanders is listed as their lead back. AJ Green's the backup right now. Dominique Johnson's a game time decision. I wouldn't be surprised if he misses this game. Sanders, 6.4K, I think, is in your GPP range. He's just in a timeshare. And then let's talk the receiving game, because if you want to stack Jefferson, I think there's some interesting options. They added Jaden Hazelwood as a transfer. He's a bit expensive here, but we've seen him in that Oklahoma offense, productive receiver. Matt Landers comes over from Toledo. He actually started his career with Georgia. This guy was explosive last year with Toledo. He wasn't a starter to begin the year, and they couldn't keep him off the field. He had 500 yards and just 20 catches, which is ridiculous. And then they returned Warren Thompson and Keatron Jackson. So I think the passing game could be efficient. If I'm targeting anyone here, it's going to be Hazelwood or Landers. But I'm comfortable running Jefferson naked, and that's what I'm going to be doing myself personally, leaning on the run game and then waiting a game or two to see if one of these receivers can emerge as the alpha. There's just a lot of unknowns in the pass game.
Did you bet this game?
I bet Arkansas.
Okay. I thought you did. We do betting you every Wednesday. Again, you can check that out. I forgot who you bet. I thought it was Arkansas. Yeah, we are aligned there. I think SEC level of competition. I was a huge advocate for Cincy making the playoff last year. Kobe Bryant, Sauce Gardner, Ritter. These are not just normal losses. These are the best players on their team type losses. I don't think in week 1 on the road, it's going to end too good for them. So I'm with you. I don't think it's the best game to target. A lot of these teams, 54, 56 point totals. And this is another game. Oregon, Georgia, big time game, big time spread in some regards, though. 16.5 points. The game's in Atlanta, quote unquote, neutral field, but not really. Let's start with the Ducks. Bo Nix, say what you want about him, but he's got experience and he has seen SEC level defenses, including Georgia. But man, I 5,800, does that make him playable, or do we not want to do that against still a very stout defense?
Yeah, their implied team total is 17. I just think you can do better than Bo Nix. He's mobile, but he's not mobile to the same degree as some other signal callers. He seems like a low upside option. We've seen him in, I don't want to say better offenses, but at least with better pass catchers against this Georgia defense, albeit a better defense, but still a team that reloads 4- and 5-star recruits at every position. I'm not going to play Nix.
For Oregon to win, I mean, credit to them. They went into the shoe last year and got it done, and they ran it down Ohio State's throat. I guess they could try to do that against Georgia. If they do try to do that, who would it be? And do you want to target anyone in the backfield?
That's the strength of their team. I won't say it's going to be a strength over Georgia, but they definitely win through the trenches. They have a really good offensive line. They're pretty good up front on defense too. They lost their 2 running backs, which is an issue. Byron Cardwell's gotten a lot of hype, but I think they will need to have that same game plan they did against Ohio State and execute it well if they're going to win. The issue is I just think Georgia's defense, even reloading as much as they are, is still better than that Ohio State unit. So I don't have a lot of faith here. Cardwell is tentatively going to lead a committee with like Marquise Irving maybe as the change of pace. They didn't release a depth chart either, and they have a bunch of receivers that are kind of in flux here with Chris Hudson, who is their leader among the returners, Trey Franklin, who kind of underperformed given his recruiting pedigree as a freshman last year, but maybe takes a step forward, and then Deontay Thornton, who's a rotational player. These are their top 3 receivers. They had a ton of people leave via transfer or graduation. They lost Devon Williams, Johnny Johnson, Jalen Redd, and Micah Pittman. Just a lot of production's gone.
Should be trailing, should be throwing. anything there? Like, do you anticipate going to the tight end at all?
No.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to get into that.
No.
Never mind.
Their implied total is around 17 points. It's going to be tough.
Well, their starter died.
What?
Webb, their starting tight end, he died.
Yes, he did die. Terrence Ferguson, I assume, takes that job.
I think he's in a timeshare, but yes.
Yeah, I mean, again, you don't want to be attacking Georgia's defense. It seems like we'll talk about them a little bit. Not that you're targeting defenses, but like Georgia's front, they lost like 7 first-round picks and they've still got like 5 more. So it's going to be really difficult. But let's talk about Georgia's offense, which they don't get enough credit for how good they are. And they're going to be the best part of their team this year. Stetson Bennett, they recruit a number 1 5-star quarterback after 5-star quarterback, and he still keeps the job. 9,400, though, is a big time tag. Can you pay that for him today?
I'm not going to. This is an egregious price. This is so high for him. And he played really well. We have to give him the credit, but he played well within the reins of the Georgia offense. He is a glorified game manager. He rushes somewhat well, and he runs an efficient offense. But at the end of the day, Georgia plays slow and they play run heavy, and he's not involved in most of that. He manages the game, and they won via their defense. He's more expensive than so many signal callers on this slate that I would rather have. I would rather play Jaron Hall straight up than Stetson Bennett, and you can save over $2K by doing that.
Yeah, we will get to BYU for sure. In the backfield, that Georgia, again, they got losses all over the place. Cook, Zamir White are gone. A couple guys do return. Georgia always seems to have, even going back to Chubb or Swift, like multiple backs. Does anyone have a lock to maybe take control of the backfield, or is it going to be more the same where a lot of guys are getting between 5 and 10 carries?
I think that's going to be the case. They returned 2 guys that were doing that last year with James Cook and Zamir White. Kenny McIntosh and Kendall Milton were a part of that timeshare with 2 NFL draft picks, highly touted draft picks. Now they have Dawan Edwards behind him. He was involved on occasion. And, it's a pipeline for 4 and 5-star recruits. Branson Robinson's a guy who's gotten some hype. He might play a little bit. I think it's the same old thing with Georgia.
On the outside, I mean, Brock Bowers is an absolute stud, but you've talked a lot in college football. Kyle Pitts of the world are few and far between. You don't have to play a tight end. So do you want to pay 7,600, or is he just such a freak that he's kind of playable even at that price point?
They do have a high team total, which is at least worth mentioning, but I would rather play like Marvin Mims right in that price range. There's a number of really solid plays up there where I don't think you need to get Bowers, but he's always going to be a scary fade because he is a tight end, but this dude has elite athleticism. He's about 235 pounds. He was clocked over 20 miles an hour just in a dead sprint in a football game, which is ridiculous speed for a player his size. Terrifying fade, but I think there's players that just project better than him straight up.
Elsewhere on the outside for them, they still have some guys catching the ball for sure. Mitchell and McConkley. Are these guys targets, or are you saying even though Georgia has a healthy team total, it's just such a team aspect that no one consolidates the production enough?
Right. That's exactly it. I will be off the pass catchers.
Not relevant for DFS, but I do want to ask you, do you think that Eric Gilbert has a role on this team?
He's gotten really bad reports. Really bad. Like he was working with the 3rd team. He got hit by a car. So he missed practice because of that. A lot of negative reports on Eric Gilbert.
Not great, Bob. All right. Yeah, it should be interesting to see how Georgia responds. I don't think their defense will be nearly as strong, but I don't think that means at the same time that Oregon is a great play. Very intriguing game here. We're making some good time. We got 4 games left. One of my favorite games actually today. I want to see Arizona really badly. They take on San Diego State. Arizona's offense will be better this year. It's just a matter of how much better. They bring in the Washington State transfer in Delora. Is it his job? Who else is behind him? Let's start there. Does he have a firm grasp on the QB position?
Yeah, it's Delora. The guys that played last year who you might go blind if you watch them play again.
Real bad.
He's starting unless he gets hurt. He was solid with Washington State. He's nothing crazy in terms of like passing game production, somewhat mobile. He's kind of a glorified game manager that can do a little bit more than your standard game managers, but he's entering a system now that's going to be up tempo and pass heavy. So it's not so much Delora that I'm interested in, but his pass catchers. And they have Cowing coming over from Utsa. This guy is awesome. Caught 69 balls, 1,354 yards, 7 scores with UTEP, and now he's playing with the best quarterback of his career in an exciting offense. UTEP is fairly slow and run heavy. Now we're going to exciting, up-tempo, pass heavy. They recruited a top 50 receiver, not a top 50 receiver, top 50 player, Tetero McMillan. This guy's a borderline 5-star receiver. He's 3,900. This is kind of like the Stewart situation for A&M, where McMillan is a high profile recruit. If he actually plays up to his recruiting pedigree, this is the cheapest he's ever going to be in his career. Again, you're taking a dice roll here. And unfortunately, unlike Stewart, this is the situation where the dice roll comes with an implied team total of 20 against San Diego State, who plays ball control and depresses the pace of their opponents. But I'm going to sprinkle in a little McMillan because of that tantalizing upside he could potentially provide. This has the chance to be a really exciting pass game. And I don't think their defense is good enough to stop teams, which could get them into shootouts, kind of like a Maryland.
Backfield, you got a guy like Wiley at flat 6. Do you want to go there? You mentioned, the Aztecs, their front is good, and it's still going to be good even with the losses. I don't think Arizona's running game is where I would go, but do you see something different?
I agree with you. I'm not doing it. I think it's a timeshare. Wiley, even though he was listed as the clear starter, I think they do rotate.
San Diego State, you mentioned, take the air out of the bowl. They have a formula. I don't think it's particularly going to work, but they're going to try. Burmeister comes in from Virginia Tech. Chance Bell will get to at 5,400. What do you think? More of the same from what we saw last year? Because I'm not sold on this team overall this year.
That makes 2 of us. I don't think you can play anyone here because of the way they play. Don't know who the starting running back is. I think it's Chance Bell, but this guy is not big at all. He's probably in some sort of timeshare. Like, Chance Bell weighs 185 pounds. Can he actually operate as the feature back for a team that wants to run 35, 40 times a game? I have severe questions. And then their pass game is just so inept that you can't really target anybody on any circumstance.
Yeah, I don't like the way this team plays. For DFS, they're just terrible. And a guy like Jesse Matthews on the outside, kind of interesting. But again, it's just such a slow game. And the total kind of speaks to that. 46.5, that is the lowest of every single game on the slate.
Yeah, it's pretty far and away too.
Yeah, it's just not a good environment. I think it's going to be a competitive game, though. Again, on the betting side, as our friend of the show, Mr. Jay Carey, was saying, we've been dropping some picks, and I have a feeling I'm going to end up betting this game. UTEP and Oklahoma not betting this game. The Miners, they are getting better. It's not going to really show today. They're in a really bad situation. We could probably get them out of the way pretty quickly. Gavin Hardison returns, but you just mentioned his favorite target is playing for Arizona. What does that mean for UTEP? Is there anything on this team that they can do against Oklahoma's defense?
I don't think so. They did throw the ball a ton. Like, Tyron Smith had 7 catches for 127 yards in garbage time. And then Flores had 8 catches for 122 yards in garbage time. The issue is with Flores is he's a running back on DraftKings. So you'd have to play him in your flex, which is definitely a no-go on today's slate. And Tyron Smith he's just facing a tougher defense. It's not North Texas on the other side today. So it's going to be a fade for me.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough situation. We don't need to act like you're not playing the backfield, obviously, right?
No.
They didn't. I will say, we saw UTEP and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they didn't run for a lot of yards, I don't believe, against North Texas. It wasn't good then. So
it was terrible, dude. Yeah. I think they finished with like 60 total rushing yards. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it is bad.
Not the answer. But on the other side, certainly Oklahoma and their 40+ point team total is going to be playable. And Dylan Gabriel takes the reins. He's going to be in full control of this offense. 92 seems like a luxury spend, but one that you could make if you have the money.
Oh, yeah. People might be scared of this offense with the changes. Jeff Lebby comes in as OC. He's going to play fast. They're going to tailor their offensive game plan to the structure of their offense. At Ole Miss, they had a really strong run game, so they were run heavier, but we've seen him in pass-heavy schemes in the past, which I think they largely will be. The strength of their team is going to be with Gabriel through the air. They have Marvin Mims. The dude is an awesome receiver. Lincoln Riley wouldn't play him in a full-time role, so I am just praying that Marvin Mims gets a full route share because this guy was one of the best receivers in the country in the limited role. 32 catches, 705 yards per route run, phenom. Love Marvin Mims. I think he's worth playing at that price if you're stacking this game. And then a really interesting play, a cheap play, Jaleel Farook, 4,100, listed as a clear starter on the depth chart. No ors, no ands. Jaleel Farook, full-time starter. I'm going to play a little bit of him with that designation. I think there's some confidence in him after a positive spring and summer, and that only adds to it without any oars in the depth chart. I'm interested for sure.
Yeah, 4,100. It's one of those things. If you buy early and you're right, you may never see that price again. I want to ask you about Eric Gray and Marcus Major, though. Clearly, they're going to be running the ball. Clearly, these guys are part of the offense. Is there one versus the other? There's a slight $1,300 price difference. Where would you go, or would you not go to the backfield at all?
I think Eric Gray is the guy you should target. He's just the veteran among these players. Major has been there for a while, and he's never truly produced. Gray was part of a timeshare with Kennedy Brooks last year, which is a pretty good endorsement, playing with Kennedy Brooks. He's a really good player. So I think Gray, he's also a great pass catcher. He functioned as the third down back over Brooks last year. Those are a couple reasons why he would be the guy I look at. Yeah,
this is clearly, I mean, when you're 30-point favorite at home, good team to target. Certainly Oklahoma's going to put up some points, and I think they have some reasonable guys there. 2 games left. Houston, Texas, San Antonio, the Roadrunners. But let's start with Houston. This is a competitive game. It's a 4-point spread, healthy total at 62. I'm a huge Clayton Tune fan. I think he's wildly underrated. He can move. He knows what he's doing. He's 7,900. Is he playable for Houston today?
Yeah, I think so. People are probably discounting his mobility. The guy had a hamstring injury in week 2 last year. He previously showed decent chops on the ground. He's going to be in an offense that's pretty strong. They returned Tank Dell, their number 1 receiver. He went over 1,000 yards. They had a 4-star in Matthew Golden. He was listed as an immediate starter, and Houston typically is not getting those kind of recruits. So I like this offense a lot. UTSA, they've given up a ton of points. I'll always remember that shootout, them against Western Kentucky. They ended up prevailing, but a ton of points scored. And if Western Kentucky is going to score that many on you, what is Houston going to do to you? Very optimistic. I think this is one of the sneakiest games in the slate. It's one I have a lot of exposure to. You know, I'm back here. Thought I was going to run just 3 lineups in. We've quickly
30 lineups later.
We've quickly exceeded that. And there's a lot of Houston UTSA.
Dell on the outside. I mean, where are you looking to pair, Tune?
Love Dell. He should be a priority. And then same thing with Tetairoa McMillan and Stewart for A&M. You have Matthew Golden, the 4-star recruit. They don't get 4-star recruit, especially at receiver. He comes into the offense. They're giving him the starting opportunity immediately. If he's awesome, he's never going to be this cheap again.
On the other side, Frank Harris returns, but they did lose Sincere McCormick. What about UTSA on a run back or just to target in general?
On UTSA, I think Frank Harris is a good play. The guy has excellent mobility. His top 3 receivers are back, and they don't really rotate there. It's Zachary Franklin is the 1, Joshua Cephas is the 2, DeCorian Clark is the 3, and they don't use a tight end. I think they're all fine price-adjusted plays. None of them are like true values, but they're not expensive either. So if you're stacking this game, they're guys you should be prioritizing, and I will be playing them in my stacks. I like Cephas is my favorite, but it's not by much. He just kind of fills out a really nice price point here, especially if you're already playing Tank Dell.
2 games left. I lied. I said we have 1 game left. We have 2 games left. We got Troy, Mississippi, and then USF and BYU. Let's get to Troy and Ole Miss. 21-point favorite for the Rebels at home, 57.5-point total. Troy looks like they're going to be in a pretty tough spot here, maybe on a run back. Maybe there's something to do. Gunnar Watson's the quarterback. What do you see here for them as big underdogs?
Yeah, you can't play Gunnar. He's not mobile. And then I think you can maybe get to a receiver. Deshaun Stoudemire was listed as a clear starter. He's 3.2K. Tez Johnson and Jabari Barber were actually their 2 leading receivers among the returners, but they were listed as co-starters. So I took a shot on Stoudemire as a run back to some Ole Miss stuff, but that's really it.
Yeah. And then last thing for them, like I said, doesn't seem like a lot. You mentioned some of the run backs. For Ole Miss, what's the situation between Altmaier and Jackson Dart?
I still think we might see both, so I'm not playing either.
Where do you go for this team then in general? Is it a spot to target? Is it a spot to avoid? I mean, they're 3 touchdown favorites at home. You've got Mingo on the outside. Zach Evans, the TCU transfer. We didn't see him last night, of course. Is he the pure alpha in the backfield?
Love Zach Evans. He's right up there among the best plays on the slate. Super efficient, good pass catcher. Awesome matchup here. We'll split time a little bit with Ulysses Bentley, but it's a Michigan situation where they should run up a lot of points and run a ton. It's a really run-heavy team, and I think that gets lost. Mingo and Robinson are fine on the outside. They'll split Watkins and Heath with the final receiver spot. preference towards Robinson, just what he showed with UCF prior to the injury, just shy of 1,000 yards in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, very, very high octane offense at times. One quick question. I don't want to go back too much, but this is an interesting one from Brian Cook. Ronaldo Flores at 3,100 for UTEP, 10 targets last week and enlisted as a running back.
Yeah, that's exactly why I don't want to target him. You have to play him in your flex. Opportunity cost is really high.
Yeah, that I think is absolutely the thing that I noted there as well. All right, the last game. It was so many games on DK. I didn't even put this on the sidebar. Sorry about that, but I can tell you it is actually on the game, and it's BYU and USF. This is a game. BYU is a double-digit favorite on the road, 11.5 points, 58-point total. And let's talk about them. You've mentioned a couple times on this show, Jaren Hall. He's 7,200. He's their signal caller. He has some mobility. Where does he fit in for your QB rankings today?
Love Jaren Hall. Returns basically all his top receivers, Nahua, Romney. These guys are all back. He's extremely mobile, and he averaged over 250 passing yards per game. USF is improved, but they don't scare you on defense. The only hole you can poke is that he's going on the road and playing in the humidity of South Florida, and it might rain there today. Those are the only issues. Otherwise, he's a really strong price-adjusted play for his mobility. I'm playing a lot of him. He's in my cash lineup.
Do you worry a little bit, or do you have any information on both Romney and Nakua have missed a little time? They're a little banged up. They're sporting probable tags. I know we got to monitor the news. You think they're good to go?
Yes.
Okay.
They say they are, and I can only relay to you what they say. I don't know them. But
yes. Oh, look at
I am anticipating them playing.
Look at our man behind the glass. Mr. Lawrence throws that up like it's no big deal. BYU right on the screen so you can see it. What about their backfield?
They added Christopher Brooks from Cal, who might operate as a bell cow. But if you remember back in 2020, Lopini Katoa was in a timeshare with Tyler Algier. So I'm a little worried about a timeshare here and not playing a ton of it.
On the other side, South Florida, I do think that they're on the road to relevancy. I'm just not sure it's going to be today. Jerry Bohannon, forgot he really existed, but he is still around $5,600. He takes the reins here. Got some playmakers on the outside. Do you think that USF is going to be a team that you want to target today?
I will, in certain matchups. This is not one of them. They're underdogs, double-digit underdogs. They do play at home, which I think is the only redeeming quality here. But their offense, I think, is going to take a little time to iron out. They already lost their starting running back, Kelly Joyner. That's an issue. Xavier Weaver is great, but he's kind of in a price range where there's a lot of really good options here. And Bohannon at 5,600, he's kind of a game manager. He does project decently well, I'll say that, because he did rush for 323 yards, but it's not phenomenal, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I think this is a pretty tough spot. BYU's got some players. I think South Florida will be better this year. I don't really like it. I'm on board with Jaren Hall. And if Romney and Nakua are okay, they make a pretty good stack in terms of what you can do. Got 2 minutes to spare. We've gone through 14 games. We were rapid firing today. I want to ask you one quick question. I know we didn't have time to get through everything on every site. Cam Rising for Utah. He is not on the DK slate. He's on the FanDuel slate. That's a big game against Florida. Is that a quarterback that you're comfortable with against the Gators today?
He's not at the top of the list, but he's kind of in that GPP range. Good mobility. They just play slow and run heavy when they can. So if they're up in the game, you have a little bit of concern with him potentially just ceding work to running backs.
And again, with all these games and all the questions, the easiest way to get access to all this is to get inside the ropes with that promo code Heisman for $1. Or you could do both. And then you can follow Matt at Matt_Gajewski and myself at JazzRazDFS. So you get all those tools. Then you get us on Twitter. We're answering your questions. You hop in Discord, you say what's up. And that is how you do it. And that's how you become part of the Stokastic family. We really want you guys to do that. Also to join this channel, press subscribe, and then head over to the Odd Chopper YouTube and do that as well. But we are just up against it here. We got about 30 seconds to lock. So Mr. Gajewski, any final thoughts? Are your lineups set? I see you scrambling. I can tell you're under the gun here. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm not that worried. I'm hitting overlay right now.
Okay. Hit that overlay. Very, very
I'm
good.
just really excited for the games. I think be careful of your stacks. Make sure you're around for the afternoon kick because we get late news. We already got some this morning and it's going to come. So just be aware of that.
It certainly is. And again, we're going to be here every time there's college football. You are going to see videos and breakdowns and content. That is what we're doing. We love the sport and we can't wait to bring you all the information. Thanks again for everyone hopping in today. Good luck. Enjoy the slate. Plenty more. It's going to be a great season here at Stokastic. We want you guys along for the ride. For me, for Matt, for Mike, good luck. Enjoy. We'll talk to you guys soon.